where Dave's at. But yeah, so I guess they totally fucked them, and screwed up their thing. So they kind of had to rebuild it. So they're working now with Alex to get it on. It's running in their local thing, but it's not on Integration Net, and they're having trouble like getting it onto Integration Net.
Classic.
Yeah. So, but it's huge digital evidence today. With me, we got Benjamin Diggles.
What's up?
And Dave Berg. There we go.
Hey, fellas.
So, we were just kind of off screen talking about some of these projects sitting on the sidelines, and this digital evidence is actually, I think a game changer, because it makes it super easy for anybody to get on chain. Yesterday or the day before, I posted a screenshot of LinkedIn. There's a musician who's using this, and he said in his description, he's not a developer and he's not a coder, but he was able to get his evidence on chain very, very, very quickly. So, I think this will leapfrog this network.
That's the plan, and I actually have been talking with that particular individual as part of the builder program we'll get into later. And he's been a industry professional in the music industry for his entire adult life, and something he's been struggling with for like 15 years is how to manage that chain of custody over his intellectual property, his inventions. And when he saw what we were doing here, like you said, he slapped something together and boom, it's on chain. Now he can start tracking his lyrics, his visual art, his music, everything, and maintain that chain of custody, and then weave that into smart contracts for royalties. And he can just build so many wonderful things on top of it that really will be a great utility for the whole entertainment industry.
Well, let's get into this, because it sounds like we're chomping at the bit, and we've got so many things we want to show. I think with this SteamYard thing, I got to share my own screen, which is usually a dangerous game. But hey, let's go.
And with us now is one of the integrators. We got Shad here from Labs DAO. So some people in the community might actually remember him. You were actually at the very first high def in, 2022? Talking about the federal possibilities.
That's right. Yeah, I've been following Constellation Network for a while now. I think it was the early days from the ICO days in 2018 or 19, I believe. But been a big fan of what you guys been doing in the intersection of bringing blockchain to the government. So I'm glad to be back again, and then talking about what you guys are building with digital evidence.
So why don't you run through what Labs DAO is a little bit?
Wait. We got a section for him, so we're going to tee him up. Yeah. Let me set the table here. So, Dagnum, let's go through our presentation, because I know we're all chomping at the bit to unpack about 9 subjects at once here.
Yeah.
So, am I sharing my screen, or did you just hijacked it? Is that what's up?
No, I'll add your thing. There we go.
Okay. All right. Well, let's officially kick this thing off, because I know everybody's excited, and so heck yeah. So we're here with Dagnum. Everybody knows Dagnum. Benjamin Diggles, one of the co-founders, our chief product officer, Dave Berg, and Shad from Labs DAO. We'll unpack a little bit about what he's doing here midway through this presentation. I'm wearing my hypergraph shirt. I got my Constellation hat, because I woke up just absolutely jazzed. My poor wife had to watch me bounce against the wall just talking about all the cool stuff that is all sort of snapping into place in 2025 here. So as far as the run of show, I'm going to go a little bit through sort of like where this came about for some of the new people. I apologize if we're beating a dead horse on certain topics you all have heard about a million times. At the same time, I don't care. It's awesome stuff to be refreshed on. We're then going to go over into talking a little bit about the Builder program around digital evidence, the brainchild of Dave Berg, and God bless him for it. And then we've got one of our solutions integrator partners, as well as a close friend on the call. Those that may have seen the press release that we're going to touch on here come out this week, announcing some of these strategic partnerships with companies such as LabsDAO, and we'll dive into that in the latter half of this presentation. So Dave, just to kind of keep you on your toes, I'm probably going to back and forth you a little bit on some of these preliminary slides before we get to the Builder program, because you have had, no pun intended, your fingerprints all over this as the chief product officer that came in January of this year, has had an insurmountable shift in this company by having your presence around. So let's go ahead and dive in here. So that's my introduction slide. And I think the reason why, not the reason, one of the many reasons I woke up this morning absolutely elated is that anybody who's been following this project since 2017 knows that the vision has always been around blockchain as an API. This is a video clip from June 21, 2019. You can find this in our Coffee Talks, playlist within our YouTube account. And you can see, like, guys, all this is going to become is an API call, not just for this Builder program, but really anybody that wants to interact with our blockchain. We wanted to make it as easy as possible to just be able to slap data on chain via an API call, and you're off to the races. That said, for anybody that wants to go a step further and get really complex and get into the customization, as many people know, they can run their own metagraph without having to use our open API and configure that to all hell and high water to their liking, and be able to do things that are extremely customizable, almost to a fault, with either a public metagraph, a private metagraph, or a private public metagraph, which I know is sort of a mind melter, but we can really choose your own adventure on how you want to interact with our network based off of your requirements and what you need to do. And even take it a step further, the ability to do confidential containers within a metagraph where you can isolate customers or other data streams that you don't want to interact with each other to make the most out of your own blockchain is also taking the customization a step further. So that's why lately I've been like just a kid in a candy store this week, just seeing the launch of this, the vision behind it that Dave has propped up. This touches me right in the feels. And for those that, don't know, and again, I know this is something we may have beaten to death, but it is extremely important. The stuff you're seeing over to the left here is the Iron Spider operational view and system view, the deep work that we did through the program since 2019, which had happened in March, all the way to delivering a functional solution to the Air Force Research Laboratory and U.S. Transcom and the DoD. That is what turned into digital evidence, and that was launched in March 28th of this year. So this isn't technology that we just decided to see, hey, let's just push it out there and see the market stress test it. It's already been stress tested. We know this thing works, and we wanted to open it up to the public and the commercial sector this year, which is really what we're talking about today, which is the momentum of digital evidence. And I wanted to show something very cool that I'm extremely proud of. We've never shown this slide to the public. This was a moment where Dr. James Amon, who is instrumental not only in the Iron Spider program, as well as he's on the front lines of the digital evidence efforts going on today. And as you know, we had our partner Panasonic, and we're still very close with them. You see these tough books. This was the demonstration. You can kind of see a small picture here in U.S. Air Force at U.S. Transcom. And we had two tough books running this amazing Iron Spider presentation on screen. This was one of many briefings, but this one was very special because we had it tethered to deprecated iPhone. Art Siebold, shout out to you. His T-Mobile T-phone, we had to open a door in the skiff because there was no internet to allow this thing to fully demonstrate itself in production from a few kilobytes a second, I believe, on that phone. So I'm really proud to share this. As you can see, I had to blur out one of the names, but I did want to keep their logo up there, as weird as that may sound. A lot of people involved in this effort. The purpose of showing this again is to show the thought and effort that went behind this product over the years. So this is not something that we just thought, hey, it'd be cool if we did this. This has always been the vision of the company. And the same thing goes with the DoD when it comes to that API call. How do you give them a tool set that is easy to integrate, doesn't really melt their brains, and it works within their ecosystem of legacy tools? So I'm going to go ahead and just touch on this for a second, and then Dave, I'm going to just have you just add a little bit of color to this. But our messaging has shifted to this tamper-proof data with provable guarantees. So Dave, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the journey getting here to kind of simplifying this message and how it turned into digital evidence and the smart checkmark.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, and thanks for the story. Right, it's important to understand where you came from, so you can figure out where you're going. This was really, like you said, the idea has been around for quite a long time to containerize this, put an API front end on it, and just push an easy button. But getting there was non-trivial. And so the first thing I did when I joined the team, I've been a longtime fan of Constellation, was really dig in and try to understand what everything did and how it worked and how it interacted. And the first thing I said is, oh my gosh, how is somebody going to do this by themselves? Right? If we really want mass adoption, if we really want the great work that the team's done to see the light of day, we need to make it easier. Right? There's teams, like you said, you can customize so many things, and the technology, the protocols and everything behind the metagraph are fantastic. But if you can't take that first step, you're never going to continue that journey. And so the first thing we said is, well, stop saying blockchain, right? What are we trying to do here? We're trying to secure things in an immutable ledger that are transparent and are useful, right? And so that's where, I mean, you were the one that came up with the smart checkmark idea to say, okay, this is what we want to get to. We want to say this data is trusted. This data went here. I own it. I understand the chain of custody. Everything is transparent. So working backwards, how do we do that? And we really just tried to take the guesswork out of it. Take the hard parts of how do I configure, how do I manage nodes, how do I do all this stuff, and really get it down to something that a non-Web3 person could understand and use. And so that's where we're like, well, where does the data sit? How do we sign it? How do we hash it? And we really went through a few iterations before we came up with what I think is quite elegant here, where you can take your data, you sign it, you take that signature, you pop it into the API with some other fields, send it off to us. We send you the information back. You still have the original payload, but now you have an immutable record of that hash. So if anything changes with it, the hash won't match. And then that's incredibly small and incredibly simple, but it's that first step in a journey, like we talked about just a few moments ago in the entertainment industry. That's all you need to open the floodgates, right? And then the vision is, we'll get some traction here, and we'll keep exposing more of the great metagraph functionality through APIs, so that way we can continue to grow and maybe do different things with the data, do different data validation rules, do different retrieval mechanisms, all kinds of cool stuff we can get to. That journey starts with this first step.
Yeah, for the musicians, it is a game changer. I remember being at the Bitcoin conference in Tennessee, and I was talking with somebody in the industry, and they said one of the things is the catalogs. Like, a lot of these artists have these huge catalogs, and some of them aren't even aware that their stuff is being used without their permission, and they're missing out on millions of dollars. And so this could be a way to have evidence on chain on whenever it is used.
Yeah, I think that authorized access is going to be one of the big cherries on top with a lot of this that we're going to tease out over time, which is not only protecting your information and having that chain of custody, but also knowing when and where it's being used. And I wish I would have taken a screenshot of that Intel Inside slide that I had back in 2019. That was always the inspiration behind the smart checkmark. I'm old, right? So back in the day, they used to sell these laptops and computers that had an Intel Inside sticker on it, and people would just look at it and buy it because they trusted Intel. And that's all this is about, is restoring trust, right? Like adding the lock in the URL when you're buying something on an e-commerce website to show there's a gateway, there's an SSL cert. With us, we wanted people to start seeing this green check mark and they know, oh, I just saw this green check mark on a tweet. I can tell that this is actually real. It's been validated. This is for real. And then they, of course, have the chance to click on it and get a little bit more detail. But going back to the messaging, this is really as simple as it gets. Like it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 punch, right? You capture the data, you fingerprint it, you anchor that data into Constellation ledger, and then it shows the verification of the authenticity. And I think the big thing here is that no blockchain expertise required. We've spent so many years trying to educate people on consensus algorithms, pro scoring, all this stuff that, like, really at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does from the aspect that you want the car to have a good engine to run that's not going to break down, for sure. But now that we know this thing runs, let's focus on the value of the use cases and the output of what's possible versus constantly talking about how nodes are managed and whatnot. I think we're well beyond that. And so I love the simplicity of this slide. And so, Dave, I'm going to hand it right back over to you. Maybe talk a little bit about just some of the early adopters here. I know we're going to touch on them. I'm going to actually give you the mic for the next few slides since I know you have some stuff here. So maybe you can quickly talk about this.
Yeah, what's really important, so we talked about the simplicity and the packaging and making it easy for digital evidence to be adopted in a non-Web3 environment. You bolt right in, right? But it's also important to understand that there's an ego check, right? Specifically in our market, where people are like, well, if it's not Web3, I'm not interested. The 4 examples that I put at the bottom here, the Panasonic emergency vehicles, Common Crawl about their data verification for the training data, Temtrace forensic accounting, and Real Estate Ledger, a first foray into real world assets. Those are all legacy applications, right? Web 2 and even older if you go into Common Crawl, but they use digital evidence for certain functions. And so it's about mixing that together, understanding where we add value and where we don't need to add value because other things can already do that. And really focusing in on this immutable ledger, really getting into this chain of custody. The Panasonic use case, we've beaten that one to death, but really talking about taking that sensor data, having a trusted log of that you can use in a court of law to understand what really happened. Common Crawl, making sure that somebody hasn't taken that data and that training data and slid something into it or otherwise molested it for either just by mistake or malintent. Temtrace, kind of taking a page out of Panasonic's book, taking all of the accounting transactions, managing that chain of custody so that if there is a dispute or if they're filing their taxes or something like that, they can automate things that today are not automated, take a lot of time and a lot of money to resolve. Why, right? Getting real-time accounting without reconciliation of the books is an amazing thing. And then Real Estate Ledger, we'll talk a lot more about that later, but it's really talking about taking this first step in the journey for blockchain and going into legacy applications and seeing where we can help them skip a step, right? Help them be more efficient, help them be faster, help them be cheaper, whatever we can do to add a competitive advantage for them to help them compete more effectively in the world.
I love it. And I just, I'm all about shout outs today. I want to give a shout out to Chad for the beautiful design on this. It's awesome. Chad, you're a rock star, buddy. So yeah, maybe share a little bit about, technology expense management, a space that a lot of folks probably haven't heard of since it's a little bit of the underbelly or the fires of the industry. So this is an important aspect. So Dave, maybe talk a little through this.
Yeah, so I didn't know much about this either until you introduced us together. But this is a fascinating industry where a large enterprise is managing multiple vendors. You understand that there's a lot of complexity going on, and a lot of times it's he said, she said. Like, I asked you to cancel this subscription for this lease line or something like that, and then it didn't get canceled. I'm still getting billed thousands of dollars a month. And how do I resolve that? Well, there's services, managed services and companies out there that help you manage these very, very complex accounting environments. And Temtrace is built on one of those, where they then want to take that information where they have, trusted data stores and things like that, but really getting it on chain in for certain triggers within their system, saving that stuff on chain. And then just like we talked about for Panasonic, they can run automated reports off of that with direct proof back to the Explorer to say, no, we received this on such and such a day. Here's a screenshot, or here's our evidence for it. And we have, immutable proof that that's what happened and that's what we received. And so that helps them solve, like I was saying, they can solve a dispute. If I ask for that line to be canceled and I receive my correct confirmation, it better get canceled or I need a refund. Now, if I didn't get the confirmation, that also is there too. So if I screw up, it's all there, and we're at a trusted level playing field here to solve these issues more efficiently. There's also a lot of tax law, right, that they have to deal with. And right now, that's an extremely manual process for a lot of these organizations. And it's very scary because if they, for example, they're filing, we're talking with like 130 different documents they have to file on an annual basis. If they mess one of those up, they get a penalty from the IRS that will make your eyes water. And so it's a really big deal. And if they can automate even any appreciable percentage of that, boy, they're super happy, right? They just saved them a lot of work, a lot of stress, and potentially a lot of money. And so going into something like this, having the blockchain technology, we can add real value. And by having an integration with digital evidence, we're doing that easily. It's not hard. We're not telling them they have to rip out their database, got to replace Oracle with this or do anything else. We're just saying, when you hit this trigger that you want to save that event on chain, just sign your data, store it off, send it to the blockchain, and there you go. And then integrating back on the reporting side is trivial, right? They've got pretty sophisticated business intelligence systems, and they can just suck up that stuff through the API, and the mechanisms already exist there. So why change something that's not broken, right? We're just trying to get a little bit better, a little bit faster, and a little bit more reliable.
Yeah, her specifically, like the Temtrace, the reports that she's been publishing these reports on LinkedIn for a couple of months, and it's pretty mind blowing the amount of savings that she's been able to fish out with this. The other thing that sort of was surprising to me, so she's an industry leader in this field, but most of her work integrating metagraph technology, it was all manual stuff. And so now this is just automating her workflow, and it's even reducing her costs that she's passing on to the customers, which is crazy.
You got it. She's been doing this, I don't want to say a long time and say, she's old or anything like that, but she's been doing it a while. She's really, really good at it, and she doesn't scale, right? She has to train other people if she wants to scale, and that's just painful. Some of the things, her industry knowledge and experience is not automatable, but the things that are, let's help her get that done, right? And so she's been a wonderful partner. It was actually a little unnerving for a bit with us, with this relationship, because we made it kind of too easy to integrate. So we're like, all right, here's the docs, like, let us know what help you need. And like, no, that's good. We got it. Thanks. We're like, oh, okay. And they're like, hey, what do you think? And we're like, that's beautiful. Good work. So once we, had the discussions, kind of laid out the architecture for them, they were just off to the races. They're very technically competent. And, when you're speaking a RESTful API, that's a language a lot of people understand. Just read the docs and get it done.
Great job on this one. Yeah. And just to, ground who she is, I want to give a shout out to Tanya Sita, who is now one of our strategic advisors, because not only is she a juggernaut in the telecommunications space and expense management, space, but she's been involved in blockchain and cryptocurrency since its genesis. I actually met her in Portland in 2018. We became close friends and have been friends ever since. So she gets the technology well beyond just this use case. And that's why we decided to bring her on as a strategic advisor. And beyond that, she's just a wonderful human. So this has been awesome. We're still sort of in the stealth mode with this. That's why we haven't really shown a whole lot outside of a couple of snippets here and there. But this thing is about to really pop off. We've done a lot of work on it this year. And I think what's great about this use case is it's very relatable to anybody that's trying to sort of work on those like disparate deltas that aren't adding up when it comes to workflows. So we're going to go ahead and move to the next one. And Dave, I'm gonna put you back on because this is also one of the wonderful things that you've brought to fruition this year that we announced. We've seen a really amazing uptick in interest in this, which I was expecting, but you never know, right? And this is a tool that I'm excited to, you know, as they say, drink your own champagne or eat your own dog food or whatever it is. I'm going to use this as a homeowner. So maybe you can dive into this and tell us a little bit about the real estate ledger.
If I could, though, first, thanks to Constellation Network, we one of our taglines internally is "Let's get weird," right?
Yeah.
Let me have weird ideas and running with it. I don't, as a product leader, part of my job is to say no because you've got all kinds of crazy ideas and you have to prioritize. But from a leadership team, I don't hear the word no very often. They're like, give it a shot, go for it, and see what happens. And this was one of those things, you know. Ben Jorgensen and I were spitballing with Joao, and we're like, you know, how do we get this out more? Like, where's this going to go? And groupthink, we came up with real estate because I really dug into the tokenization of real estate and saw some things that scared me. Right, tokenization of real estate is fantastic for unlocking liquidity. You can do cross-border transactions at lightning pace, but am I just cross-border transacting my funds into a dark, deep hole, right? I mean, we talk a lot about proof of ownership, proof of work, but what about proof of management, right? And then I was like, you know, that's really something I think we can sink our teeth into as an infrastructure company. We're not necessarily dealing with the tokenization of real estate, but how are you managing it? How are you owning that? Time and time again, as I was researching tokenization, I kept reading, and our trusted property managers, and no disrespect to property managers out there, but why should I trust you? What evidence do you have that you are trustworthy, right? And so we started, you know, riffing on this, and I came up with Real Estate Ledger, and you know, it took off like lightning. The two big things that were really circled around, we have Ed Orvitz, talk about shout outs. That guy is just a great supporter of Constellation, but also an early investor in Real Estate Ledger, and where we model a lot of stuff around, you know, him building properties and providing all that information about that property, the build details, the paint samples, the permits that he's pulled for the property, and getting that all into the system so he can prove and show that he's doing his job right. This protects him down the road in case there's a lawsuit. They can say, well, you didn't do this properly. And he can say, well, yes, I did. Here are the permits and the receipts to prove it. And it's all on chain. Have a nice day, right? But then there's also talking about the homeowner. I get frustrated because I'm generally an organized person, but the home I bought was, you know, several years old by the time I bought it. And I'm like, I don't know anything about the warranties. I don't know anything about the permitting, the wiring in the house. I'd love it if I had a user guide for my house. How can I build that? And so you can see there I have the homeowner guidebook. So as you're putting your information on chain, whether it comes straight from the builder or you have a home already and you're just saying, oh, I just replaced my dishwasher. Well, wouldn't it be great if I kept that warranty information in here? And then we can build things in the future that can use AI agents and things like that on top of that data. But really getting into logging that information as a homeowner, that helps me if something breaks and like, oh, is that covered? Like, who is the vendor who installed it? Maybe I can call them, they can come out and they can handle my warranty claim. Having all that information at my fingertips is fantastic. This builds up to, like I was talking about, builders managing their liability insurance, homeowners watching for fraud protection or title monitoring. And then we're also building up all the way into tokenization. So if I'm going to start to tokenize maybe an apartment or whatever real estate I have, I can point that to this to say it's proof of management. You can see that when there is a repair, I'm using high quality materials. I'm using licensed vendors. I'm paying my taxes on time. I am, managing my utilities appropriately, and so on and so forth. So this is, as I talk about many times, a first step in a journey. This is a pretty big first step. And so this guy, we're actively building it right now. We've got probably another month and a half of development to go, and then we're going to open up for early access.
Yeah, and some of that stuff is pretty rampant, like the title fraud. Like I didn't have an idea of how big it was until you guys came out with this real estate ledger, and title fraud is a huge problem now. And it affects everybody. It not only affects the seller, but it also affects the buyer. Like, if I'm trying to buy a property and I think that it's legit, and for all intents and purposes, it is legit because somebody got scammed out of a legitimate title because they faked a fake Dave Berg got the title from the title company. And
that brings up, that brings up a challenge with real estate in that there's local laws everywhere. It's rarely consistent. So title insurance or title ownership in the East Coast of the U.S. is very different than in the West Coast of the U.S. There's a lot more years of population on the East Coast than there was on the West. So even within our nation, it's very different. But then you go to other countries, and holy moly, it's all over the place. So we're not going to change the regulation, but we're trying to make it easy to manage this chain of custody and to know if something changes or if something unexpected happens by having this stuff immutable and having it easily accessible and transparent. It makes a whole lot of things a lot easier. So you could say, I can't tell you what happened with the title of this land, 200 years ago, but I can tell you when I started working with this, everything I've done has been on chain, and you can see, the whole traceability of it.
Great work on this. I mean, Dave, love you, buddy. You're not scared. You got a lot of latitude to show the breadth of what you're capable of, and just the fact that you're willing to get weird is awesome. And this is everything but weird, in my opinion. I think this is extremely practical. As those that know us, we've been pushing infrastructure for such a long time, and we still are. Developers, come on, let's build some solutions. We've got this toolkit. Let's get weird, right? But we decided, let's start building some apps that are just sitting here that we think have a huge amount of opportunity with really strategic partners like Ed. God bless you, Ed. And I think the one thing I want to say before I move on here is just the RWA, that this is really around those real world assets. This is one of the expressions of real world assets and can be applied to so many different things. And I think we're going to see us being a huge leader in this category. I'm going to be on a panel on October 30th at the Capitol, Edge of Crypto, GBA, and our panel is all about real world assets because we feel like this is a sweet spot for the next big push in the industry. So we're going to get through the launch of the digital evidence builder program here, and then I'm going to hand it over to Shadman to go through his stuff. But I have a couple of slides I want to touch on before I hand it back over to you, Dave. So this is it, right? When I look back on that API, blockchain as an API, man, this is so cool. This is like one of those things we want to have available. People are like, man, I really want to do a proof of concept, but do I really need to spin up a test net or an integration net? And I have to manage nodes and all this, which we think is a very healthy progression for those that are serious. But if you want to just kind of figure out if it's possible, you can do this at no cost. And one of the things that I'm very proud of, yesterday I was about ready to burst through the seams. What I decided to do is go to the National Weather Service and find an open API that was free. They have a threshold of every 5 minutes that I can ping it without paying money. I went into Cursor, which is a development AI platform for those that don't know, and I basically vibe coded fingerprints on chain using the weather service. I said, okay, I'm going to isolate my local weather to the Denver metro area. And anytime there's a change in temperature, the moment that API spits out that change, I want that data to create a fingerprint and put it on the digital evidence metagraph. And it did it. I did it in less than 2 hours. I'm not a developer. I didn't do one line of code. All the documentation is mint. I just went to the digital evidence documentation. I fed it into Cursor. I fed in the API documentation from the National Weather Service. I told it what I wanted it to do. I said, hey, I even want to say Mr. Diggle's weather in the document. I want it to be Fahrenheit, and I want it to act this way, and bam, I did it in less than 2 hours. Now that I know what I'm doing, I could probably spin up a fingerprint in less than 20 minutes from an API. And this is streaming data. This is just happening without me doing anything now until I go in and I tell it to turn itself off. But I just want to express how easy it is to use this thing to kind of get things going. Damien, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty incredible. I noticed this pop up yesterday, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" And it is actually spitting out a lot of fingerprints, which is pretty impressive. I think you're going to give Joao a run for his money. But yeah, this just shows circling back to what we were talking about, how easy it is. Like, you're not a developer. That guy with the artist, he's not a developer. So anybody can get any sort of meaningful data on chain super simply just by integrating this API.
So handing it back over to Dave to sort of talk a little bit about your vision behind this, because I think we've got 2 slides here for you. So Dave, if you're still alive.
Dave.
There we go.
Dave is back.
Sorry, the internet went down in my hotel, so I'm tethered to my phone now. So sorry about that. Good job, Benjamin. I mean, what you described, what you did with the weather, was exactly what we wanted to get to. As you know, as this idea, the Builder program came about, I wanted to, like I said, get the word out. How can we make this accessible to other people? We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep building inside. But how do I then unleash this? You know, our community is the cornerstone of Constellation. And so as I keep driving forward on the commercial side of what we're doing, I have to, I want to find ways to keep giving back, keep making this accessible to other people, because they have great ideas. I mean, like we talked about the entertainment use case. There's pharmaceutical companies working on. There's so many people in this Builder program already. We just opened it on Monday. It's mind bending. And so that was the dream, is we can take our really fast and scalable and configurable metagraph and put a bow on it, right? How do we make that easy? Put a high availability service in front of it. It's a multi-tenant environment. Architect it in a way where the data is not reversible, because you're signing and you're putting it on a hash and things like that. And then make it available to people. Let them try weird stuff. Let them play with it. A lot of people are just going to tinker with it and then be done. Others are really going to incubate and build cool ideas, and we can help them in those journeys, and then listen to them and figure out what's best to do to extend this and make it more capable and more capable and more capable. So the Builder program, we opened the wait list a while ago. We launched on Monday, and it's been going gangbusters. So we're not going to slow down. We're going to keep our relationships. What's interesting with Temtrace, it's an enterprise company, and we're partnering, and we're really white gloving that relationship. The real estate ledger, we're like, fine, we'll just build it, right? But we don't want to do all of that. We want to really make this open to the world and see what we can do together. And that was really the essence of the Builder program. And exactly innovation like you just did. Hey, I want to do some kooky with weather. Let's go. So we're really excited. We're really proud, and we're really looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Yeah, and I think just from the stuff that I've been getting in my inbox, since this has gone live, there has been a lot of interest. And one of them specifically was seeing what Joao did with Twitter and the proof of post. That got somebody else to want to build an AI agent that's going to do something completely different, but is going to integrate digital evidence with their bot. So, I mean, this is already getting a lot of interest from people.
Yeah, Joao and I talk every day of the week regularly. Like, hey, what if we did this? Or how about this? And so he was the first, of the builder program. Like that was the first API key we sent out was to him. And the amazing, I think we're going to talk a little bit more about the upside, the amazing work he's doing with that. It really shows how it's not, one chain to rule them all. You can cross the streams and really build great things using Twitter, using the base ecosystem, using the Constellation network, and put them together for some really compelling use cases that people want and that people are excited about. So yeah, really happy about that. And it then inspires other people to think about cool stuff. Making this accessible is it's one more tool in the box that people can use to build with. And that's really what we're about.
Heck yeah. So for all those that are tuned in right now, take a screenshot of this page or watch the replay to get access to, of course, you can get to all of this from constellationnetwork.io. And man, now is the time. Anytime some of these new tools pop up, there's a chance to be first to market with some really cool expressions, as we've seen from the Upsider, that is generating a ton of value. And so wanted to talk to Shadman here in a moment. So those that know, I've always had a one-to-many strategy. We have no interest in being a services company outside of maintaining metagraphs for people in blockchain and supporting the infrastructure. And so, off to the left, we've got our announcement on the 26th of us launching this. And to show some momentum in September, we have now, over the last several months, been onboarding quite a few solutions integrators, but I wanted to call out these three. Now, I'm going to hand it over to my main man, Shad, here in a second, but just want to give a preamble that Shad used to be the head of Web3 and blockchain for CGI, a great partner. He's always been very pro Constellation, but I think my favorite thing about Shad is that he's just a cool dude. I was showing my wife this handsome picture of you, bud. And he's not only a cool dude, he really knows the space and he's all about collaborating. And so he went ahead and split off and decided to found Labs DAO. We immediately connected on this, and that's why we wanted to name them one of our strategic solutions integrator partners. So Shad, I'm going to hand it over to you. I don't know if you want to share some slides. I can stop sharing, and we can hand it over to you if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin, for the kind words. I can share some slides and then walk us through what the vision of what we're doing. Let me know if you can.
Yeah, just bring it up. I got your website up right now. So as soon as you do the share, I can remove.
I did the share. Let me know if it comes up.
Oh, yep. Bam. All right, there you go.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Benjamin. Like you said, I've been in the space for a long time and had a great relationship with Benjamin and the Constellation team. I'd like to just cover what Labs DAO is, why we started it. Labs DAO is essentially an R&D company, and our mission is to advance humanity and the American project using blockchain and AI. And you'll hear me say these three things over and over again. Our real mission is to bring radical transparency, accountability, and efficiency solutions to government and industry. So just to dive a little deeper, what we really do is not just blockchain, but we're really pushing the boundaries of the convergence of emerging technologies. That includes AI, that includes blockchain, that includes privacy-preserving technologies as well. And we have a small team, and we're starting to grow the team. This is me, my CTO, and my managing partner. And just to speak about our track record, been trying to bring blockchain within the defense industry for a long time. Straight out of college, I've been working at Leidos as their first blockchain engineer, working on blockchain IoT integration for tracking supply chain assets for the Army, for Marine Corps. Also worked on DARPA Space Watch program, trying to secure the space supply chain by tokenizing space assets. Also did work in the healthcare industry with DIDs and creating vaults for healthcare records. Also did some work in the entertainment industry, working on launching NFTs for certain celebrities. So some of our solutions, just at a high level, the first one we are working on is called Glacier AI. This is a project that we're building for the Air Force around AI transparency, so detecting AI and analyzing AI for cybersecurity risk. The second piece is Inked AI, which is a voice AI for real estate. And this is where I'm super excited about the real estate ledger because we've built this voice agent that essentially can draft up your real estate contracts within minutes just through a conversation. And the next piece is to put these contracts on the blockchain and create a real estate marketplace that would connect buyers, sellers, have this radical transparency layer for home buying and making homes more accessible. The third solution we're working on is called Anacostia, specifically Anacostia blockchain. This is a open source MLOps framework that is being adopted by MITRE and several other government agencies, essentially trying to bring continuous model retraining, and the blockchain element essentially is bringing the accountability and transparency to the AI black box. And the fourth piece is computer vision platform. So all of this to highlight that we are working at the different industries, bringing different solutions, but all of it is being essentially using our tech stack, which, as I mentioned, the three things, right? The transparency layer, the efficiency layer, and that accountability layer. And this is all using different technologies, blockchain being our transparency layer. And in our efficiency layer, we have our voice AI and AI agents using Anacostia, and an accountability layer using computer vision for accounting for humans and assets as well. So all that to say is we're trying to bring disruptive solutions across industries, whether that's supply chain, law enforcement, real estate, healthcare, and our vision is to really transform industries with disruptive solutions, combining blockchain and AI expertise that we have over the last decade. And this is the exciting piece, I would say, Benjamin, when I first shared this with him is, where are we going and what are we really trying to do? And this is sort of a vision roadmap. And some of this is where things get weird and people will call me crazy. But essentially, what we're building is an operating system of trust, leveraging blockchain, leveraging AI. And the real goal here is to build a new system of trust. By 2030, you can see I have some crazy stuff in there with the visions of creating a decentralized artificial superintelligence framework, and essentially trying to codify the Constitution where humans, AI, and robots can collaborate to create a fully autonomous, efficient government and industry. So that sort of paints the big picture vision. I know I went through a lot of products and things that we're working on, but really the foundation of this is trust, and what can we do to bring trust back to our systems, back to our governments, back to our industry. And that really takes not just the blockchain layer. Blockchain technology is cool, but it is going to take the integration of other technologies such as AI, such as robotics, to really bring applications to light. And this is the vision we're working towards. And maybe I don't achieve this in my lifetime. This could be decades long. But this is what we're trying to do is to build a world where things are radically transparent, radically efficient, accountable. It advances humanity and the American project by empowering governments, businesses, and consumers as well. So I'll stop there, but that sort of highlights what we're doing and why we're so excited to work with Constellation and the digital evidence piece, because that is a foundational building blocks of trust for a lot of our solutions.
In your lifetime, bud, you're a young buck, and I'll tell you what, Chad, you're not an opportunist, but you're a passionate visionary that executes, right? And we have such a joined ethos. I always say to people, this is all about trust. And if we look at the neck-breaking shenanigans that have taken place with just an AI in the last couple of years, I think the things you're talking about are actually probably sooner than you've even outlined here. So you being a visionary and driving with passion, we're really excited to be attached to you, man. And thanks for sharing all of this stuff today. Dagnum, not sure if you have any color you want to add to this while you allow me to share my screen and us go back to finish this thing up.
No, I mean, I was just so like when you were with CGI, you helped the Marine Corps with their audit readiness. So like what sort of lessons did you learn in that experience, and how are you applying it to AI and data integrity at
Well,
LabStat?
yeah, so the audio readiness piece, as you know, it's a very manual process. The biggest thing I learned is that you can automate 99% of those things, but it still takes humans. And if the data is bad, the data is bad, and it's going to take a long time. And so one of the biggest lessons I learned is that you know, you cannot say the word blockchain to the government. You what you're doing is saying digital evidence and really trying to paint it in a different way. Like, look, this is a record of immutable ledger and records of events, and if this is stored on a ledger, we cannot say that this was not true. So the biggest thing I learned is that it's how you communicate. And I've been trying to do this over the last decade, and it's using their language and really speaking their language, and that's when I started having a lot of success. And the lesson is the technology is there. It's just the people that are in the government are not quite ready, but they are receptive to this idea that we want to use a ledger that would essentially create an interoperable system, because it's not just about the Marine Corps. We can fix the problem at the Marine Corps, and we're leading the way. The Marine Corps is sort of setting the example that they are the ones within all of DoD that can pass an audit. But how do we then replicate this to the Army, to the Navy, to the Air Force? That's going to take, that's a challenge. The biggest thing for me was tech. The tech is ready, but the people aren't. And it's going to take a lot of us to start speaking the right language and start shaping the right messaging to really make that impact. And it's going to take a lot of us. We can't do it alone, and it's going to take a team to make that vision a reality. Like I said, if we want to, codify the Constitution and make every government system on chain, it's going to take a collective effort. So that's the biggest lesson I learned is the sheer amount of effort it takes to just get it right in one place. I mean, just imagine trying to replicate that across the government.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Hey, we can cryptographically secure all your data. What do you think about Bitcoin? that's how we don't do it. So yeah, dude, God, I've been in those same. I've said that so many times. Messaging. That's the thing that you have to get. Understanding their language and delivering value and getting that confidence, that trust up over time. And then you can start saying terms like Bitcoin, and they're going to be like, "Great, we trust you, so we're good to go." But it's a long road to get to that spot. Dagnum, can you go ahead and allow my screen to share, if you will?
Yeah. Yeah.
There we go. All right. Well, we got about 10 more minutes here. We're going to wrap this up. Shad, thank you so much for being here, bud. You're a rock star. So what is next and why Constellation is entering a new era? I threw this slide together, no joke, like 5 minutes before we got on. And so this is rather crude. That's my disclaimer. But what we're seeing is this convergence moment that's really happening. A lot of these things have been rather isolated up until 2025. And, people, when they're talking crypto, they say blockchain. They don't mean blockchain. People say blockchain. They say crypto. They don't actually mean blockchain. A lot of confusion about where all these things kind of fit into the bigger puzzle. And then we had AI, which was everybody talking about LLMs, which is still a very hot topic. That's the lifeblood of data that is feeding. That's into these different agents. But agentic AI became something that gave all of us a level of superpowers. And if we think about how we can bring in APIs to power agentic AI in a meaningful way, what they can do with a blockchain ledger to not only create that digital evidence of activities that's taken place, as well as new communication pipes, but reward mechanisms. And I only threw some logos down, but there's a lot more logos for Web3 partners. But we're getting closer to groups that may in the past seem like oil and water, like Constellation's the L0 and they're not focused on ERC20s. Well, that's not actually true. We're able to enact and get involved with ERC20s in a meaningful way. And our partnership and our efforts with Base, as you saw from the on-chain summit that we were at a couple of weeks ago, we're we're all in. We're not against the meme token movement. We just wanted one that culturally fit with our ethos, and we believe the base ecosystem is just that. So big shout out to them. Of course, we've got packet swap. So when we talk about real world assets and talk about the tokenization of it, if you get these rewards, what are easy ways to bring them into Constellation to activate them in a meaningful way? Packet swap has been doing some amazing stuff in the last couple of weeks since its launch. Huge shout out to the team there. But the DEX is really something that powers sort of this grand trine that we have above. And then, of course, we have Fortune 500 companies. The uptick that I've seen in my conversations on the front line with these big companies is that they want this and they get it. But it all sort of starts with the AI piece. That's what's going to lead a lot of this, is the functionality that we're seeing in agentic AI. That's why Labs DAO is really predominantly focused on AI as their real entry point, with supporting technologies to superpower that, to bring forth visions like putting the Constitution on an AI, that a superpowered, a supercharged AI. So one of the things that I do want to end on that I think is just, as if you've been sleeping on Constellation, if you've not been paying attention to the good old Joe Wow, who has put the Upside or AI together, this thing has been parabolic in the last few weeks. And I don't even know how he sleeps, because the dude wears so many hats. But this isn't even the homepage. This is just the digital evidence page. And I sort of like cropped this nasty tweet that you see below. But what I love about it is this next slide that I'm showing here. I don't know if people really understand how powerful this expression is that I'm looking at. This is the thing this morning I was like telling my wife, like, I'm outside of my skin on this. This is true digital evidence. Do you know how many times these jokers in Congress are debating and contesting? You said this, here's a big board of a tweet that you said, and they're like, no, I didn't say that, and maybe they deleted it, maybe they didn't say it. Anybody can alter a screenshot, anybody can make a big board and make it seem really official. As you can see from this, we've got a tweet that went out that has either been removed, has been altered, or changed, but there's a blockchain verified immutable record of that actual content saying, actually, it did say this at this time because it's been put on chain. So no matter what you want to say or do, there is that provable guarantee and that proof that that took place. This will be a game changer, especially when you start putting rewards into this, like Joe Au has done with the Upside or AI. But I don't know if people really understand the gravity of what we're looking at on the screen right now. Like, this has never been done before. Constellation is the vertically aligned ecosystem that has brought the sum of these parts together, allowing somebody who's a one-man army to put this solution together. And I know it hasn't been easy, and he's been burning the candle at all three ends on this. But holy cow, the value he's created. I think his market cap is like $5.5 million on a base network token. I couldn't be more proud. So while I'm hyping this up, I want to open it up to the rest of you guys. You know, I'll start with Dave. Dave, do you have anything you want to say before Dagnum has his opinions on this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So to Joao, yeah, he has not been sleeping, because he's just as excited as everybody else, and he wants to bring this stuff to market. But taking a page out of what Shad was saying, using the language, whether it's the language of government or the language of whoever, really trying to not just force feed Web3 to people, but really trying to build these things with it, whether it's agentic AI, whether it's generative AI, whatever it is, and really solve a problem. You know, when you're talking about these applications like X or other media platforms, they control the data, right? They own it, and they can remove it, they can alter it, they can do whatever they want. And then, you know, how do you document history, right? By having this stuff on chain, you're not messing with it. It's not the story of, oh, history is written by the ones that survived or the ones that won. History is written while we make it, and that's pretty cool, right? That's something I want to be a part of. And as you're talking, I have a fairly deep background with AI as well. When you're talking about AI, it's the you know, AI is a statistical model, and garbage in will get garbage out. And if you're starting with trusted data, And the agents will be able to tell you if you can trust it or not, because they can see where it came from. If it's on chain, things get a lot easier. They get a lot faster. They get a lot cheaper, and they get a lot more impactful if you're working with data you understand the provenance of, and you can trust the conclusions that you bear out of it. And so, yeah, it's an exciting time, and looking forward to see what the future brings.
Yeah, I mean, it's Upsider has been absolutely parabolic, and the data like proves it. Like you were, so I mean, aside from the market cap, and you can see here, so this is Lunar Crush. Shout out to those guys. They honestly have the best not on chain, but they have the best social metrics available. But look here, I'm gonna do the engagements. And so this huge spike in engagements happened once Joao added the ability to reward people by engaging with him, and then the snapshot, the digital proof or the evidence of any post. So you can tag the Upsider, and you can have them, proof the president's post, anybody's posts. And so this huge spike is proof that something is happening. The other thing that's pretty remarkable to me, that anybody can replicate this. So, this was a fair launch token. There's no insiders. All of this is organic. This isn't like pumped up by anybody. This is just awareness building, and it's incredible to see, like from the beginning, when hardly anybody was talking about it, to now literally like hundreds of thousands of posts about it just today. This is live data.
It's amazing. It's awesome stuff. And, we could sit here and talk about, I even like dusted off my Diggles burner Twitter account to get my Upsider stuff just to go through this. So it forced me back on Twitter, which is a powerful thing. But, well, I know we could nerd out and keep going. I feel like I have enough endorphins in my system to do 1,000 push-ups today. This is awesome. So let's go ahead and round it out. I just want to go ahead and give a big shout out to our guest, Shad here. If you don't know about Labs DAO, start following them. If you have opportunities that you think are fit for what they do, send them over to Shad or myself. I'll make sure that he sees them. Again, thanks for being here. Dave Berg, way to go on all of your efforts this year. It's fun to see this stuff come to fruition. If you're interested in the real estate ledger, coming out October 24th for early access, sign up for that. If you want to start banging on our API for digital evidence and coming up with cool solutions, it's open. Just have to go ahead and sign up so we can get you your keys. And other than that, just keep following on all the stuff that we're doing. We're going to start up-leveling the brand here in the coming months to sort of graduate all the hard work we've been doing over the last few years. And my last shout out, of course, is to our fearless leader, Dagnum, who to date still has the largest staking pool on the delegated staking. So General Dagnum, I think that's a very appropriate name, and it makes sense that you're at the top. So thanks everybody for taking the time today, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, take it easy. And that was ended, and then I'm gonna end